All right, really quick. You might hear some music up above. My spouse does that for a living. I am at chapter 16, so I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book. That means I think I have one or two more chapters in subbook three. And I want to give my thoughts now. Um, Look at all these notes at the end of the book. That was just to help me remember things if I ever needed to go back. And anyway, uh, the first time through this book, I wondered if it was going to be my favorite of the first four books, and it was for a lot of it. Like in at least one specific reason. Now, in other ways, I can totally see why it would be kind of at the bottom of the list, at least in terms of the first four, but some people put it at the bottom of the list for the whole series. And I can also see that. And in some ways, I would put it the same way. But what it does really well, I think it does a few things really well in terms of what it offers to the reader that they've been kind of dying for up to that point. As far as if you're a lore guy and you want to know more of the background of what is happening in the series, I think House of Chains is really where it's at for the first four. You know, you obviously get it in all the books, but there is so much exposition. There's so much happening in terms of man, that was really playing loud now. But you know, there will be minor spoilers in this, but in terms of, you know, you get Karsa and you get so much about his backstory, and maybe you start to kind of wonder if he's like related to the Barghast. He's this Tolbakai. He's related to, in what way would he be related to the Talani Mass of old? In what way, you know? And he meets up with Ikarium and Mappo, and that is a major point in the story, at least in House of Chains. You get a lot of backstory regarding them, and Ikarium is always just this kind of mystery, so we always kind of are excited to get to him, even if his story is really just them walking around for most of it. But man, he fights in this one. But also we get the Forkroll Assail, and we get this extra little thing. Like all these people down on stones is so like caught under stones is very compelling and makes you just want to know more and more about the backstory. We get these Talani Mass. Again, this is spoilers for the fourth book. We get the Talani Mass kind of masquerading as his gods, sort of thing, and wanting to be brought back to where their flint swords were made on Seven Cities. And you kind of wonder about, you know, Seven Cities is super interesting. Like I'm admittedly more of a Genebacchus guy in terms of the stories that are happening, but as far as like lore and what the heck is happening underneath that sand and what is hidden under there and these cities that are there, I mean, Seven Cities is where it's at, and it's just so compelling. Um, you also get a lot about the Malazan Empire. Now you get these hints earlier on, but it really makes, you know, up to this point you're still wondering what to think about the Malazan Empire. Some of that is put to rest a little bit in Memories of Ice, where, you know, they kind of break off, and even Animander Rake has kind of seemed to soften a little bit. But you know, by the fourth book, it seems like the Malazan Empire just sort of is, rather than being like a full force for evil or a full force for good. Really, even with Rome and with different countries and whatever, who's at the head does make a big difference. Um, but you know, you go into the series wondering, like, am I trying to topple the empire? Is that what our characters are trying to do? And it really isn't that. There is a bigger picture going on, and Malazan, you know, this empire is just kind of the setting. Uh, but very interesting in terms of getting more of that. You get a lot with Onrak and Troll. with their backstories, with the backstories of the Edur. You get a lot more Tist or Talani Mass. You get more info about, if you're obsessed as I am as with the Tist Edur and then the Tist Andi and the Tist Leosin, kind of their quarrel. Like, I'm so excited to get to the Carcanis trilogy for more of that. But you even get some of that there. Like, there's just so much for lore, and it's like a lore dump, this whole book. And then you get to the whirlwind, and that might be my favorite aspect of this book. Even though I do love the stuff with Tavor and the bone, the people with the pendants, finger pendants. I love that, and I do love Troll and Onrak. But you get some great themes. You get a continuation of Felicin's theme, and it's so interesting to see Karsa and Felicin and a lot of people that have these really broken sorts of pasts for one reason or another. They either have gone through a rev, Haboric. They either, they've gone through the Odotarl mines and have been brutally traumatized at a young, they're just teenagers, for Felicin, just a young girl, and then being with these two men that, aren't really the best for her in terms of getting, I say in terms a lot, don't I? But in terms of getting her kind of back on the right foot. And Karsa with his crazy background, and Leoric and Leomin and some of these people that end up there, like Bidithal, like there's a lot of people that end up in this realm with this little kind of background. And I think that might also play into some of the reading, that this is kind of a shadowy, it's kind of a remnant of shadow. Like even the whirlwind, like the initial one, Onrak's wife or girlfriend, or I can't remember, but then he started doing nudie pics of Kalava on the wall, or whatever. I don't know if they are nudie pics, but it pissed her off, and then she became this whirlwind. It's like, we understand a lot of these people with some of the reasoning behind why they are the way they are in that moment, and it's like a big turning point for a lot of these people. And it's so interesting to see Karsa claimed as this Knight of Chains. That's his thing, right? And then he kind of says, no, I'm not going to be your slave, sort of, towards these the Teblor gods, but also, even though he's the Knight of Chains, he's going to do things his way. And it's very, very interesting. And you see some tragedy happen. And I know later in this book, the tragedy with Felicin, like, she is such a tragic character, and you just, like, that's a big focal point or a lightning rod for a lot of people reading the series, where some people just hate the character in book 2 because she just is, she's very insufferable sometimes. I don't hate the character, but I get frustrated seeing some of the things she does, even though it's understandable with a lot of these characters and what they've been through. And then she just becomes such a tragedy in book 4, especially. I really like House of Chains as more of a commentary on some of these themes, maybe more than the actual action that's happening in a lot of these books. Like, I love Capistan, and I love the Panions, and I love the action that's happening in book 3. And I think I like I love everything that happens in Darujistan. So I love Gardens of the Moon, and I think I like the Chain of Dogs generally more than almost anything that happens in House of Chains. But again, I think this is where some of the backstory really starts to shine in the series, in my opinion. And like I said, I think it gives you the most to start to think about. Like, I put the book down. I know I'm ripping through it, but like the first time through, as far as noting, you know, annotating things in the margins and stuff to think about, this book has a lot of that. And if you're not as into that, I can see why it would be lower on the list. So anyway, I'll leave that there. I'll send my heart out to you, you know, or whatever. I need two hands, but send my heart out. I've seen some strange ways. I've seen some odd ways that the heart is being sent out these days. Hopefully that one works. So talk to you later. Bye bye.